What's up, my beautiful people? This is your boy Stefan, your Afro-Grenadian ambassador. Many of our African enslaved people that were brought here on the island of Grenada came from the Benin Kingdom, which is now known as modern-day Nigeria. When they came over with a tradition called Shango, which derived from the Yoruba people. I'm going to take you on this journey to the village, the beautiful village of Dumfaming, where a small descendants of Yoruba people can still be found practicing the tradition to this very day. What are you waiting for? Let's journey with me. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Yeah, so my name is Alvin Charles. I'm a minister here at Mount Rehab Spiritual Baptist Church where you are. Um, yeah.
All right. Do you consider yourself an African descendant? I mean, it's a silly question, but for those people out there who may think that we are ashamed of our African identity, I said it's necessary for me to ask this question. So to dispel the rumors, do you consider yourself as an African descendant?
Yes, I am an African descendant and I'm very proud of that. I also have information to verify
Yes.
that I am of African descent to a
Okay,
large extent.
that's great. That's great. And which part of Africa do you think your ancestors are from?
Well, based on the information I've gathered, um, on my father's side, and I believe on my mother's side as well, it would have came, our ancestors would have came from Nigeria,
All right.
most likely um, the I- Igesha Yorubas from Nigeria.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. That's interesting. How long have you been practicing Shango or have been a Shango worshiper?
Well, I wouldn't use the word worshiper,
Okay.
but we do acknowledge Shango, and some of the other orishas as well, like Oya, Oshun, Yemoja. We acknowledge Eshu,
Okay.
uh, Ogun, and all the other orishas.
Okay.
Usually we have like feasts, different persons in my family, like my father, my aunt, and other members of our church and other churches would have African feasts, so what you know as Shango dance on a yearly basis from time to time, where we cook, we feed people, we make offering to the Orishas, including Shango, among the others.
All right. So you mentioned about cooking and feeding people. Is traditionally known as the saraka, right?
No, it's different from the Saraka.
Oh.
The Shango, well, just as the Saraka, it's and the big drum dancing, it has to do with the agriculture cycle.
Yeah.
But the Shango has a strong ritual aspect to it, including the manifestation of a particular spiritual entity.
All right.
We would have our ceremony on the tent. We would play drum, we would sing, we would dance, and then certain times during the ceremony, some person might be under manifestation where they portray different attributes of the Orisha
Yeah.
or the spirit that manifests on them, and they get the inspiration or they are directed or led to
Yeah.
do certain things to help the person keeping the feast,
Wow.
as well as others who might come around in terms of healing
Wow.
or prophesying, as the case may be, or casting out evil spirits.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Walk us through the origins of Shango and its history here in Grenada.
So after the abolition of slavery, a lot of the slaves left the plantation, and that happened throughout the Caribbean. And then the sugarcane business was on a low in Grenada, and we had to meet up to the demands so we'd be able to compete with our competitors from Brazil and the other places.
Right.
So there was in Nigeria, there was what you call the Oyo Empire. Shango was a king of Oyo. The king of Oyo was called Alafin. Today, most person call it in Grenada Olufe.
Yeah.
Shango was a king, Dada, Baba, Samdi. And what happened is that after the fall of the Oyo Empire, or before the fall of the Oyo Empire, from the late 1700s, come down to the early 1800s, there was very little a very small number of Yoruba slaves
Oh.
in Grenada. But after the Oyo Empire come and fall, because there was a war in Nigeria among the different components of the empire, there was not as influential as before. Be it as it may, there came into Grenada a total of 1,000 Yoruba people to work as indentured laborers.
Oh.
And when they came to Grenada, they came with their tradition. As a matter of fact, they formed themselves into close communities where they have kingship structures and so forth.
Yeah.
So, and they would have settled in places like Munich, Black Bay, Lara, Rosehill, etc. And then over time, they gradually spread to other communities.
Yeah.
So that's how Shango came about, because those who practice the African feast, or as most persons say, those who keep Shango dance or acknowledge Shango and the other Orishas in Grenada,
Yeah.
would claim direct lineage from that 1,000 people who came to Grenada, not as part of the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you,
And that was in
it is said that 38,000 Nigerians came here. So I was about to ask where you know where we get that statistics from, you know.
So, based on the articles I've read, there were Nigerians, but those from the Yoruba tribe came as part of the 1,000, most of them
Oh,
in
okay.
1849. But in 1848, there was a few Yoruba people that came from places like Sierra Leone and St. Helena to Grenada. But they were, based on what I understand, they were slaves from another location,
Okay.
and then they was recaptured and carried to Grenada.
Wow.
But it was a very small number, and those that came in 1840s, 1848, they were mostly Hausa Yorubas.
Oh, okay.
Hausa meaning like the Muslims and so
Muslim,
forth.
right.
Yeah, so the Mohammedans, they came to Grenada, but a small number of them, the majority of them came as part of the 1,000 to rescue the sugar plantation after the slaves would have left.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, a few months ago, I've learned that the grandfather of my grandfather on my father's side was actually an African man
Oh.
from the same 1,000 that
Yeah.
came to Grenada.
Right.
He had gone by the name Jimbo Kai. I guess that was a nickname. But he married a Chinese woman.
Oh.
And they had children. And then the elder within our family that gave my father that information said that we came from the lineage of kings. And when I did my research, then I get to realize that after the Yoruba people came here, they spoke the Yoruba language. They had the practices and the rituals and so forth that they used to do. And they keep feasts for Shango. Because remember, before the fall of the Oyo Empire, that's when they came.
Yeah.
And the Oyo Empire, Shango was one of the main kings.
Oh, okay.
So, and Shango himself, Shango was the king of Oyo. He's also known as the god of thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
He's one of the emblems he usually carries an axe, a double-headed axe.
Okay.
And his color is red. Sometimes you see him in red and white.
Oh.
He's the king of the big drums.
And it's funny enough, before I come here, and I was wondering what to put on, and something just said put on red, you know.
Yeah,
So
he's the king of the big drums.
yeah.
As well, sometimes when we call him, we also sing songs Elufe, because Elufe was a title given to the kings of Oyo, and he
Right.
was a king of Oyo.
Right.
Yeah, so he is both an ancestor and a god. Well, a demigod,
Yeah.
because there are many gods within the Yoruba pantheon,
Right.
but there is one universal god that is called Oludumare.
Mm.
And Oludumare is the god of all the gods in the Yoruba belief system.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
they believe that life started in a place called Ile Ife, which is the land of expansion. And Odudwa, Odudwa was also part of the creation process.
Yeah.
That's another god.
Oh.
And his sons is responsible for creating a lot of the Yoruba empires
Yeah.
in Nigeria from
Wow.
which we descend.
Wow, wow. I mean that is deep information because I never knew that the Yorubas and the empire of Yorubas was that massive,
Yeah.
and so many gods. I thought it was only Shango, the god of thunder.
No.
But you made a very important point, and something too that grabbed my attention is that it's new to me learning that some Africans came here as indentured servants and not as slaves,
Yeah.
because we were told that it is the Indians that
Right.
came here as indentured servants after the abolishment of slavery. So you mentioned something very important that was not in the history books. So
Yeah. If you search deep enough, you would find it. But you won't find it just like that. Because I went to a conference, if I should call it that, or a seminar, sometime earlier this year or late last year thereabout. The name of it was in the Marisha House. Um, it was presented by Dr. Chantal George
okay.
from the University of Glasgow. She's of Grenadian heritage too, and she mentioned about it. And then I started doing more research, and then I realized that not all of us that not all of us are descendants of slaves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Wow.
yeah, so as I say, when they came, they had their own kingship.
Yeah.
But so, and then a few years ago, I was doing some research into the spiritual Baptist faith, because spiritual Baptists really come from Saint Vincent
Oh.
for the most part.
Wow.
And then it came to Grenada, and then Grenada developed Trinidad, and
So
so
spiritual Baptist started in the island of Saint Vincent and the
yeah, yeah.
Grenadines. Okay.
And it came to Grenada around the time 1900.
Wow.
And then later on, there was the Prohibition Act against spiritual Baptist practice. But before the spiritual Baptist came, the main African religion here in Grenada was the Shango religion.
Right. That derived from the Yorubas.
Yes.
Okay.
So there were three different languages on the island at the time. Well, four. There was the Yoruba language, there was the Creole, the English, and the French. The Yoruba came in the time of the French rule.
Okay.
So a lot of the songs that we sing are mixed up between Creole, English, French, and Yoruba.
Right.
So if you try to trace the exact meaning of those songs back to Yoruba land or Southwest Nigeria, you may not get an exact translation,
Right.
because some of the language is mixed up because of the influences.
But I
the point I
did.
wanted
Yeah.
to
Sorry.
make is that before spiritual Baptist was a Shango religion, and then a lot of the Shango people, because before 1900 they didn't have a church that quite identified with their practices.
Right.
So they used to do the African work. They used to have the rituals and so forth being performed under tents and so forth, and the drumming and the dancing, manifestation, and fighting of evil spirits and so forth in people, places, and so forth. But they didn't have like a church where they would go and worship like every Sunday or every
Okay.
Saturday, as the case may be. They would they would go to the Catholic Church. So a lot of the people in the ancient past that used to do this African work, they were Roman Catholics.
Okay.
Because they commune, they christen everything in the Roman Catholic Church. But at a certain time of day, because the priests would understand their lineage, they would be allowed to do the African feasts. Like for example, people like Miss Wishes, Miss David, all of them, they were not spiritual Baptists.
Oh.
They were Roman Catholics, but
right.
they did upkeep the Shango feasts or the Orisha feasts.
Okay.
And but before the Yoruba people came in 1848, 1849, thereabout, the main cultural art form in Grenada was the big drum that used to be practiced in Grenada and Carriacou. But and it was the big drum of the nation drum, and it was part of the it was kept as in accordance with the agricultural cycle as well. So you had that. Even today, there are some people when they have feasts, they would get nation drumming and so forth. And when I say get nation drumming, I should explain something else.
Yeah.
Because the way the culture is kept in Grenada, and well, I'm not sure about Trinidad, but in Grenada mainly, it's different to what you would find in continental Africa. Because in Grenada, if someone have to do a Shango feast or African feast, they would have to get a vision.
Right.
They would have to get some form of spiritual revelation
Okay.
to do that aspect of the feast. They have to be told how many animals they have to kill,
Okay.
what animals they have to kill.
So it's not just getting up one morning and say,
No.
okay, I'm gonna
No.
make cook and kill animals and
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They have to know who they have to feed. Sometimes they have to go to the homes and distribute food. They have to go to the schools and distribute food and so forth. Because we come from the lineage of kings and queens.
Queens, yeah.
And we have to feed people
Okay.
because that was our duties. So our ancestors would come in our dreams and so forth and explain certain things to us so that we know who we are and what we have to do.
Yeah.
Now, another reason why it's not the exact same as continental Africa, because it's kind of mixed up. And that's where the spiritual Baptist aspect of it come in. In spiritual Baptist, originally spiritual Baptist, because in Grenada you cannot talk about Shango and African feast without talking about spiritual Baptist.
Okay.
Because when the spiritual Baptist came to Grenada in 1900, the Shango people would have started associating with the spiritual Baptist church as opposed to the Roman Catholic Church. Although there are some aspects of the Roman Catholic belief system in our church.
Right.
So if you look here, you will see the rosary that we use as well, and I'll go into how we use it.
Okay.
But that aspect remained because there were some of our ancestors that were Roman Catholics. There were some of our ancestors that were African. Some of our ancestors were Chinese.
Oh,
Some of our ancestors were Indians. Some of our ancestors came from different places.
And that is all due to colonization, the mixture of
so
races.
because of all these indented people coming from different
parts of the world.
And coming to Grenada and the mixing up, our ancestry is mixed. So when we get visions and revelations, some persons might get to do spiritual work more on the African side. Some might get spiritual work to do more on the Indian side, the Chinese side, as the case may be. Right? So initially it started as an Afrocentric religion, but it developed into a multicultural religion.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I noticed the drums. The drums plays a very central aspect, in the practice of Shango, and as African descendants, What is the symbolization of the drum? What does the drum symbolizes?
The drum symbolizes the heartbeat of the people.
All right.
So we have different types of drums. So this one, see here,
Yeah.
this drum is called the djembe drum. And the djembe drum originated from the Mali Empire
Okay.
in Africa. And the Mali Empire, the first person to play the djembe drum was the king of the Mali Empire.
Right.
And he used to use it to send message. So how we play the drum, you have the bass, you have the slap, and you have the tone. So right? So we play this drum in the church, right? When we having service every week.
Okay.
Or whenever we have service. But when we having our Shango dance, our feast, we play these drums here. This drum is the tankota. You have three drums. You have the tankota, like this one. You play it like this. Just that.
Right. Yes. And where this drum originates from?
That's the same Yoruba people.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This one here is called the kenke.
Kenke, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that this one is really well known, the kenke drum.
Yeah. Now the kete drum, okay, the kete drum
and the kenke, okay.
This one is the kenke. This one is the tankota.
The tankota.
So the kenke, all of them start like that, but when the kenke would lead.
Wow.
Right. So when to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the let me sing a song. Ogno ama kere kere pere kualama. Ogno ama kere kere babaluma kere. Ogno ama hold on. Kere kere That's how you play that drum.
Okay.
Then so that is the kinky, and then the mother drum. This is the mother of the tree drum.
The mother of all drums.
Yeah, that's the one that do all the cutting.
Right.
Right? So you play it like that. Right?
Right.
And then when the cutting going like King would be like with the stick, right?
Yeah.
And then when the mother drum cut in, these have to complement, so like the holy rhythm.
Yeah.
And this one going boogadup, 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 boogadup. So that is the three drums we play when we have Shango feast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also Shango people or Orisha people of Yoruba descent, we do a lot of feeding of waters.
Right.
So
yes, well, tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Because if the growing up, I knew, I observed whenever Shango season and stuff, because I live in a community where there's a lot of Shango, practices there as well.
Community do you live?
Moya.
Right.
Right. And going to by Donovan, seeing them feeding the waters, and then when Christianity started taking over, that practice was a bit, I would say, demonized. So walk us through a better understanding about the feeding of the waters.
What I would say initially, right, as a setup to my answer, when people don't understand certain things, they cast it aside as superstition and evil.
Yeah.
And then around that time, we were living in a era where everything African was considered demonic, dark, and evil.
True.
So the feeding of the water. So you have to understand where we come from as a people. You have to go back to the past and understand. as I say, all of us didn't come as slaves.
Right.
So those of us who came, those of our ancestors who came in 1848, 1849, the 1000.
Yeah.
When they came from the Igesha people of Nigeria.
Okay.
Igesha Yorubas. Igesha is a place in Nigeria. And that Igesha actually is part of Oshun state.
Right.
Oshun was one of the wives of Shango. He had three wives, Oshun, Oya, and Oba.
Okay.
And those three wives, they they have three rivers named after them. Because what happened is that there was an accusation against Shango, and Shango, um, he left. He was banished from Oyo because he was accused of something that he didn't do. And then they come and they say Shango hang himself,
Okay.
but he didn't hang himself. So that's where the song come that ka abakoso alade kowa isale yo, abakoso kowa isale, abakoso alade kowa isale yo. Obakoso, Oba meaning king, Obakoso is the most powerful manifestation of Shango. So the Igesha people came from Oshun state. When Shango, well, let me just speak in circles. Let me finish that point. Shango escaped, right? He was exiled. The tears of his three wives, it is believed that it formed the three rivers, Oshun, two are Oshun and Oba. And then you have Oya. Oya is the mystical goddess, right? She is also known as the Ialoja or Iansa, mother of the marketplace, mother of nine. She deals with a lot of breadfruit and things that have to do with wind, right? She used all colors except black.
Okay.
But when it comes to the feeding of the water, the goddess in the water is Oshun, but depending on which water you're talking about. If you're talking about the lakes and the rivers, then you're talking about Oshun, right? She is the goddess of the fresh water or the sweet water. If you're talking about the salt water, the part closest to the shore is Yemoja, which is the mother of all the Orishas, right? Oshun is also her sister.
Yeah.
Then you have Olokun, which is the god of the deep ocean, right? And it said that Olokun divided himself to form Yemoja.
Right.
Yemoja. So when we go to the river, we go to Oshun with our offering and our sacrifice, and we make petition, we ask for requests, right?
Yeah.
Because the Yoruba people, they have their belief system, right? Our ancestors had their belief system, right? If you want to communicate with God, you communicate with God through the Orishas, right?
Okay.
If you want God to bless you, you go to your Orishas. Everybody have their personal Orishas. You also have your own Ori. Your Ori is the guardian of your head, the ruler of your destiny, your intuition. So when we go to the water, we go with our tray, we bring cake and bread and sweets and milk and so forth. And we lay our offering on the water as a sacrifice to the Orisha of the water, which is, if it's in the river or the lake, is Oshun. If it's in the sea, it's Yemoja.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. With all that being said, what would be your message to all Afro-Caribbeans who may be ashamed of their African identity?
I would say you're talking about those in Grenada?
All over the Caribbean.
Right. Well, the first thing we have to do is to know where our ancestors came from, what they were known for. Try to sit with your parents, your grandparents, and find out what is it that their parents or their grandparents did. And you would realize that not too far into the past, our ancestors were in Africa,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you even go to the registry, you ask about some of our grandparents and great
Yeah.
grandparents, not maybe not our grandparents, but our great grandparents or great great grandparents, you
Yeah.
would notice that their nationality is listed as African
African.
or
Yeah.
Nigerian. So I would advise that persons get to know their ancestry and try to work from there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful
The
message.
best knowledge is self-knowledge.
Yes.
If you don't know
Yes.
yourself, then you will be lost forever.
That's right. That's right. And what would be your message to our African brothers and sisters on the continent? Because there is a lot of them that is watching you right now. I have a huge African base, and especially overwhelming support from Nigerians. What would be your message to your fellow brothers and sisters on the continent?
Yeah, there has always been a plot or a scheme to discredit everything African as evil and dark, as wicked. I would advise all continental Africans to um, follow the way of their ancestors, because our ancestors would have fought a lot to keep alive for us what is alive for us today.
Yeah.
So if you have a grandparent, and you have a picture of your grandparent, you could have that picture in your home, right? And they would
Yeah.
come to you and they would explain certain things, because think of it, when our ancestors were carried across the transatlantic slave trade and as indented laborers, they
Yes.
weren't allowed to go back to Africa.
No.
Some of them went back, but the majority of them
Yeah.
were not allowed to go back.
Yeah.
But what they thought would have been a ploy, what they tried to do in terms of trying to destroy our identity as African people. Our ancestors came to us in our dreams and our visions and explained to us our ancestry and what we should be doing as an African people or a Yoruba people of Yoruba descent.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we could have the Shango practice or the Orisha practice in Grenada and Belize and Cuba, Trinidad, and so forth still being practiced today.
Yeah.
Because wherever there is African people, the ancestors of our people would always reveal themselves and try to explain to us who they were, what we are, and what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But if we just see our ancestors as demons, which for the most part Christianity has taught us to believe, that our ancestors are demons and evil spirits are trying to manipulate us in our dreams,
Yeah.
then we would always be forever enslaved.
Right.
So to continental Africans, I would encourage that you be closer to your ancestors. They have the solutions to the problems that we face as Black people. I also encourage the leaders of Africa to unite
Very important.
against the rest of the world,
Yeah.
so that Africa can be great again. Because before the name Africa came about, from my research, it was called Alkebulan. It was a Muslim name, and then I think it was the Germans, foreign intellectual people that came and divided Africa into different countries and so forth. But the whole place was just one landmass, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No borders.
it's outside forces that
Yeah.
came and divided Africa.
Yes. Yes.
And since Africa became divided, people started having tribal wars and all them thing
Yeah.
and them. So Africa have to unite, and the musicians, the media personnel, the politicians,
Yes.
they all have a part to play in
play,
uniting Africa.
Yeah. And would you one day like to see the Caribbean and Africa become as one?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there should be some form of agreement between the heads of government of the Caribbean and the heads of government of Africa, um, and all the countries of Africa, because there are what 52 states of Africa.
Yeah, 52, 56,
54,
54.
54,
Yeah, I
yeah,
believe
54
54.
states in Africa. Yeah, they have to make it easier for Black people in the Caribbean and wherever dispersed to go to Africa without the hassle,
Definitely.
because this was something that was taken from us.
Yes.
So there must be a way that would not frustrate us from going back to our motherland and experience what it's like. I, for one, would like to visit.
Even if we don't want, we may not be able to leave, but to visit,
Yeah,
at least visit.
yeah,
Yeah.
some form of means of repatriation.
Yes.
I, for one, would like to go to Africa.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some places I would like to go, like Nigeria, of course.
Uh-huh.
Ghana.
Ghana, yes.
Yeah, I like to go to
Yes,
Ghana.
yes, yes.
Kenya too.
Kenya, wow,
Yeah.
guy, you read my mind. You read my
Yeah.
mind, because these three
Nigeria,
countries
Ghana, Kenya.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and all, and, you know, man, and many more, many more.
Yeah, even Uganda.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Uganda, Tanzania.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's wonderful to know that. Well, folks, as you have heard, here we have Mr. Alvin Charles. Am I right?
Yeah.
Alvin Charles, giving us some in-depth details about the Yoruba practices here in the Caribbean, especially Grenada. And he have went into in-depth details. And just before we end this interview and we say goodbye, we are, as you can see, we are in one of the temple here. All right, and he will give us a quick tour of the spiritual, how to say, symbolizations of what is here.
Yeah. So here we have um, how it's- this is what we call a goblet.
Okay.
Okay. It's made of clay. This is a dragon blood flower. That is what we use in it, because that's what was revealed to us by our ancestors and the orishas in our vision to put inside of it. This emblem represents Oshun,
Okay.
right, which is identified with the Roman Catholic Saint Mary or Saint Philomene, right, Saint Philomena. And this one is kind of broken, but how it curves around at the top, if you go to Shango,
Okay.
that's the boiling spring.
Yeah.
One of the holes up there, it is shaped just like the goblet, right? And when we go to that place to feed or to clean or whatever, or to bathe, we go to the same ocean
Right.
or Saint Philomene, right?
That's yeah.
So the rosary around it, um, because we do say the Hail Mary
Okay.
to Oshun as well,
Okay.
because she was identified, because she is gracious and she's nurturing and all that. Her attributes was synonymous to the attributes of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So when we say the rosary, we're calling on Mama Oshun. And then she would come, she would give us blessings, grace in our lives, and
Right.
so forth. Right? Certain things we have to do by the water. We also would have to use a rosary.
Rosary. Okay.
Oya also use the rosary. Oya is a mystical queen,
Okay.
mystical mother, Orisha. Something else I want to say about Oya is that she's the gatekeeper of the cemetery, and she's the one who is in charge of the realm between life and death.
Yeah.
So it's like she is in control of the ancestors, So before we have our African feast or Shango feast, we would call an Oya to open the way for the ancestors. So that's why when we go down to do our litany, we start with Afefe.
Okay.
Afefe kulibatala jare, eji kulibaba fu, abayewo abachibe puligafeo. So Afefe is the messenger of Oya. So when we say Afefe, we calling an Oya, we asking for a message to go to Oya so
Okay.
the ancestors
Yeah.
come and
Yeah.
accept our offering
Yeah.
and so forth. Then we have the bell, right? We use the bell both in feasts and in church. We use the bell to when we are blessing.
Yeah.
We use it when we are dispelling evil spirits,
Okay.
right? When we are consecrating and so forth. It's
Okay.
also used as a signal when we are going out to give message of repentance and so
Okay.
forth
Right.
on the Christian side of things. Right? We have the Bible. Also used, right, as part of our religious belief as spiritual Baptists. The only book that we read is the Holy Bible.
Okay.
Right? We have here, this is a calabash from the gourd or the goli. It represents a boat. As a matter of fact, the Spiritual Baptist Church is seen as a ship
Okay.
that can take us back to Africa spiritually.
Okay.
Right? So the ship, you have the center of the ship where you see the center pole. In some churches you would find a wheel or a compass, right? And depending on how the service go, you spin it.
Yeah.
So the church spiritually can sail in different directions. So the church is seen as a ship that will take us back to Africa. And that is what our ancestors have created, and that's what the calabash represents. The calabash represents a ship, the church represents a ship, so they're all like one. Because our ancestors wanted to go back to the
To
motherland,
Malan, yeah.
repatriation, even spiritually.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we go to fast and prayer moon, as we say, we would find ourselves in different nations. Sometimes we find ourselves in our visions, we would find ourselves in Africa, we would find ourselves in India, China, as the case may be, depending on where your ancestors lead you. Alright? So that's what the calabash represents. So it represents a ship, and the ship can sail in whatever direction depending on where your ancestry come from.
Okay.
Yeah. We have here, it's also inside a calabash, we have grains, rice and corn represents abundance.
Yeah.
And we use it when we go into the different corners of the church,
Yeah.
right? And we do it as a heave offering,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
We heave and we pay obedience to the spirits that dwell in the corners of the church,
Oh, okay.
right? The spirits and angels that dwell in the corner of the church. We have here the shak is also a musical instrument.
Yeah.
With the tambourine and the drum. That's what we use in our church as musical instruments. In some churches you go these days you would find like trap sets and those things. Right? It's
Yeah.
getting a bit modernized, but most churches retain the foundational musical instruments.
Yes. Yes.
Then we have this here, this is the Cheshire broom or the Fouquier broom. It's also called the broom of salvation. It's made from the palm. Palm represents salvation or to be saved. So we use this when we are getting rid of evil spirits, right? Sometimes we use it to clean, right? Yeah. So that's the Cheshire
right.
broom.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could use it.
Well, wonderful.
We have the sword.
Yeah.
This is a wooden sword.
Okay.
Right? This is a sword made of metal. Sometimes you go to an African feast or a Shango feast and you might see someone dancing with a cutlass.
Yeah.
Dancing with a cutlass. And when they're dancing, it seems like they're coming at you with the cutlass to chop
I
you.
had
But
this experience more
yeah,
than once.
but they're not coming to harm you.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes there might be some evil forces around you that they
Oh,
are trying to clear off.
the
So they
clear.
would pass it next to you like
Oh,
this to clear out any disturbances from around you or evil from around you.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so most person, because they don't understand, when they see that, they start
Well,
running.
yes, because
Yeah,
I had that experience.
yeah,
I was
so
witnessing Shango, and
mhm,
then, I ran.
yeah,
So thank you for that clarity.
yeah. So
Thank you for
that's
that
what I mean. This
clarity.
is the red and white checkered flag. This also represents
Mm-hmm.
Shango,
Mm-hmm.
right? Shango and Ubatala combined, right? Ubatala is the king of the white cloth. He represents purity, right? And Shango is his brother. So red and white, Shango, Batala, but mostly Shango. We
Okay.
use it for,
Wonderful,
right?
wonderful.
Um, the nation flag, remember I said, but in spiritual Baptists,
Mm-hmm.
there are different nations.
Yeah.
So spiritual Baptist is not just an Afro-centric Christian denomination.
Okay.
It's a multicultural
Right.
religion.
Yeah.
So you have African, Indians, Chinese, Arabians, which has to do with deserts, and Egyptian mythology and all those things. And we have the Spanish aspect of our, it depends on where your ancestors come from, right? It's based on our ancestry. Everything that we
Mm-hmm.
do spiritually is based on our ancestry, based on where our ancestors come from,
Yeah.
right? And I say, as I said, we in Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean, we are mixed people, right? So, for example, my great great grandfather was from Africa, but
Yeah.
he married a Chinese
That's right. So on
woman.
the mother side, you
Yeah,
trace all the way back to China.
to China.
Yeah.
So sometimes we might have visions where we find ourselves in China. Yeah, dealing with monk and all.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. This is the red flag. This also represents Shango and everything African.
Okay.
In our religion, red represents everything to do with Africa
Mhm.
and Shango as well.
Okay. Wow.
And then we go, some person will also tell you that red represents the blood of Christ.
Yeah.
And this is black and red. You can
Mm-hmm.
have black and red, red and black. The red on top, the black
Below.
below, the red in front, and
Right.
the black behind.
So it's like good over evil or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
not necessarily good, but opposite forces.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but it represents Eshu, which is the guardian of the crossroad.
Oh, okay.
Right? Eshu is a god like Anansi. No, Anansi
Yes, the
is a god,
Anansi.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anansi was is I think it's Ghana.
Ghana. Yeah. I think that
Yeah,
derived from Ghana.
yeah, a trickster.
Oh, he was Anansi was actually a man, or
He was a god.
a god. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So all the stories about Anansi is about a Ghanaian god. Just so
Okay.
to understand.
Okay.
So it's issue represent everything mystical.
Yeah.
Depending if you're in some kind of problems or
Mm-hmm.
whatever trouble might be in, you're at a crossroad in your life, you go to issue and it would help you.
Help you with that.
Yeah. This yellow represents Oshun. Yellow represents Oshun, the goddess of the sweet river. And the point where the sweet water meets the salt water, that's it is said that that's where Oshun meets Yemoja, which is the queen of the salt water, and they greet like this at the estuary,
Okay.
right? So for example, the water you would meet when right in Simon, the river going into
Yeah.
the sea there, it is believed that at that point where the river meets the sea, Oshun and Imoja greet each other.
Right.
So Oshun, Imoja, Oya, all of them work together because Oshun and Imoja represents water, Oshun sweet, Imoja salt, and Oya is the wind.
Okay.
So three of them, three sisters work together.
Okay.
So the
Wonderful.
blue represents Imoja,
Mm-hmm.
right? She she takes care of the children, right? She takes care of all. She's the mother of all Orishas.
Okay.
Okay. Um, she's also known as called Saint Anne's, depending on where you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The lamp
yeah.
represent our ancestors, and we also use the candle,
Okay. All right.
right, as our guiding light. We use different fragrances, right, when we are blessing the different corners and different parts in the church. The honey, right, we'll show use honey as well, right. We use the mortar and the pestle when we are making medicine and mixing herbs, right. This is a cow's horn that we use when we're doing anointing and so forth.
Okay.
We have the green. Green is one of Oya's colors. So let's say Oya use all colors except black. Right? So green, orange, all those are Oya colors. And purple represents royalty. Right? Because we might look simple, but there are kings and queens among us.
Yes,
As we
yes.
say, we come from the lineage of kings and
That's
queens.
right.
So
Yeah.
purple represents royalty. Purple, gold as well. Right? And we also use powder. Right?
Yeah.
Very blessing. The shell, right, is to send a signal or to call spirits,
Yeah.
right, spirits of God, to the Orishas to come forth and worship God together with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing is this is an Indian emblem.
Oh.
Inside this tarya, you would find the Om symbol, which is the symbol of meditation, and this represents the head of Ganesh,
Yeah.
which is an Indian spirit. That's why I say it's not just an Afrocentric religion, but it's a multicultural religion.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
There
So.
are many more I could say because there are like over 400 different orishas.
Yeah.
But if you have any more questions, I'm willing to answer it.
Okay. Well, I think that's we had, our plate is full, and there's a lot of things that you have said that was new to me, and I will definitely go do my homework, do my research. But I'm grateful for every bit of information that you have given. So, guys, I am logging out from here. This is Mr. Alvin Charles. All right. He's I'll put it like a Yoruba descendant here in Grenada. And he's giving us some insight about the Yoruba practices that were left by our ancestors. And also, the spiritual Baptist is not just a Afrocentric. That is something I have gathered. It's not just an Afrocentric religion, but it's a multi cultural religion that is influenced by different ethnicities. So the two
depend on where our ancestors
come from, right? Yeah. And it's different. It's different. So Shango is a class to itself. The spiritual Baptist is a class to itself. So that is the uniqueness of the Caribbean and how we were influenced by colonization and what we have become today. So, guys, I am logging out. This is your boy Stefan, your Afro-Grenadian ambassador. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, ring the notification bell for many more videos. Take care and God bless.